Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to the February 23rd special meeting for a budget workshop and a couple other items that are on the agenda today, but I'd like to welcome everyone to our 5 o'clock public session. Before moving forward, I'd like to address a change in the agenda. There, under the bottom of the agenda, number 4 under continuing business that's been added. The GCPS reopening update by the superintendent will be addressed this evening with some new information concerning the return to schools. So that is an update to the agenda. At this time, I'll take a motion for the approval of the consent agenda, which works with the parameters for negotiations for the school board. So we'll accept a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, motion by Mr. Van Sickle. Is there a second?
Rodney, I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Paul. We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? The consent agenda, motion is on the floor. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And the consent agenda is approved.
I think we need to do the regular agenda too.
You're right. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I changed the agenda and didn't take the vote to accept it. Let's back up one quick moment. Is there a motion on the floor to accept the amended agenda?
So moved.
So moved by Monica, seconded by Matthew. Those in any discussion about the amended agenda? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And we do have an agenda now and a consent agenda. Under public comment, there was one comment that was sent to the board as a public comment because it talked solely about one individual person who's employed by the Board of Education. We've decided that the board we will not read that publicly. However, will be a part of our public record. It has been our past practices that we do not read comments that are geared towards one specific person, either positive or negative, either one. Also want to talk a little bit about our March 9th meeting. We've made every attempt that we can to have an in-person March 9th meeting, and we will do so. The March 9th meeting will be held at the board office. We had tried to make arrangements perhaps to use one of our schools, but as most all of you know who follow this closely, all of our schools have been, they're different. Every inch of those schools have been used in some capacity to ensure the safety of our students and staff. So it would be, probably wouldn't be a good idea by us to ask our schools to move everything around for just our meeting when we could have our meeting at the board office. So we will do that on March 9th, but it will be in person with the elected board, superintendent, and whatever staff is needed to participate in that meeting. So it'll be March 9th, and we'll get a media ad out on that as soon as possible. The next item is E, superintendent's contract. On January 31st, the Board of Education received a letter from the superintendent requesting 4 years of a new contract to be considered by the elected board. The board is tonight considering that contract request by the superintendent. Is there a motion on the floor to accept the letter of request from the superintendent concerning a new 4-year contract?
This is Rodney. I'll make a motion that we accept the superintendent's request for a new 4-year contract to extend to, I suppose, February 1st or March 1st, 2025.
I guess it would be right, yes. So there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Van Sickle. Discussion concerning moving forward.
Just to clarify, that goes July 1
Yes.
through June
Oh,
30.
I'm sorry.
The existing
I modified
the
the
new
motion.
contract will start July 1, 2021 and end 2025. Okay. Any other clarifications, discussion about moving forward on the request by the superintendent? Okay, hearing none. Those in favor of the superintendent's request for four years, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
And it is approved. Superintendent's contract will be extended to her. Actually, we'll try to do that tomorrow. Try to get the signatures on those tomorrow so that we have that behind us. Mrs. Fagan, would you like to respond?
I would, please. Thank you. I want to sincerely thank the board for the opportunity to continue serving as superintendent. It has truly been an honor to serve Garrett County Schools for the past 31 years and my 5 as superintendent. I have enjoyed working with our employees, students, families, and the community. There is a tremendous amount of work to be done, and I am committed to doing everything I can on behalf of each of those groups to recover from the pandemic and move our school system forward. Because of this, and due to the uncertainties with enrollment and our funding that is tied to it, I have decided to accept a contract that includes no increase in salary and no increase in fringe benefits. I am truly grateful and eternally thankful and look forward to working with the board and our many stakeholders for the next 4 years. Thank you again.
Thank you, Superintendent Baker, and congratulations on 4 more years. And I think all of us know that these are all going to be very difficult years in terms of many, many things, but they're going to be exciting years as well, as we've got a lot of opportunities ahead of us, both instructionally, opportunities ahead of us in terms of making our system better in every possible way. So once again, congratulations on behalf of the board.
Thank you very much.
At this point in time, we'll move down to budget works. Sure. At this point in time, we'll move down to the budget work session. Tonight, we want to try to start wrapping our arms around what our next budget will look like during a pandemic, with large portions of that budget unknown at the moment. But we do have an obligation to get to our county commissioners what we feel will be the monies that we will need to successfully run the school system next year. So I'm going to ask the superintendent, along with I think Mrs. Schweitzer is going to join us, and Dr. Wilderson is going to join us to try to lead us through what our budget would look like going forward tonight.
Okay, I think Mrs. Schweitzer is going to share her screen. It's 3 separate agenda items, but we've really put it together into one brief presentation because we would still like to spend some time hearing back from the board members. So I will let Mrs. Schweitzer hopefully share her screen, and then we'll go through the parts until we get to the action item. Okay, ready?
Think so.
Next slide, Mrs. Schweitzer. There we go. Thank you. So this, as we talked about at our last meeting, which has only been a couple of weeks ago, the objectives and the process really are together in a circular motion with a lot of internal planning, defining our priorities, forming the actual budget, and then of course the budget approval, which we're right now between number 3 and number 4. We would like to this evening present the priorities of myself and the school system. They are brief, and there are 3 that I think people can easily speak to. And then we do want to, as I said, we do want to hear back any additional information from the board. And then we have a couple more budget sessions until, including the local government presentation before the board formally approves the final budget. Next. So in defining our priorities, we do look at the mission of the Board of Education, the school system, to partner with our community and constantly be inspiring student growth by rigorous instruction and learning opportunities, a culture of excellence, and of course, preparing our students for beyond Garrett County Public Schools. And the goals are listed here as well. Certainly a rigorous instructional environment, continued partnerships, a safe, secure, and caring environment, which we will talk about tonight in addition to this presentation, but during the reopening update. And then, of course, making sure that we're good stewards of our system resources and making sure that we continue to attract and employ highly qualified and effective teachers and all employees. Go ahead. So as I said, there are really 3 major goals as I worked with the cabinet teams, our lead teams, our principals, and those are to accelerate our academic achievement. And as I've said many times, to meet our students where they are. When they come back to us March 1st, when they come back to us March 15th, of course, but as we start this budget cycle, or implementing this budget, which would be in the next school year, when we come back in August. The second one is basically the same, but to address social and emotional well-being. Again, we want to meet our students where they are and address their emotional needs, their behavioral needs, and that will also include staff. This has been a very difficult time for all of our employees, and so the second goal is to address those issues as well. And then the third is really to return the focus of our school system to moving forward, to really honing in on instructional excellence, our capital needs, and continuously improving the efficiencies of our central support. And really, over the pandemic period, we have continued to not only focus on the recovery, but also on moving our school system forward. Our JROTC program was approved as a completer program. We have staff involved in our mind-body medicine and our mindfulness and addressing mental health. You'll see in the next presentation, our student councils have really come together to address emotional well-being. There's been so many things that we have done, standing up an entire Schoology that really was done because we had to do it because of the pandemic, but that's going to reap instructional benefits for many years to come. So the focus will continue to be on moving the school system forward, but it's not like we have stopped. We also just got news just the other day, there's a letters workshop training it's an early childhood literacy program. And we had 17 of our teachers approved to participate in that training. So with everything else that's going on with the pandemic, we actually had 17 teachers get approved to participate, which speaks volumes to the commitment of our employees to our school system. So those are my 3 goals as we move our school system into the next school year and beyond. Accelerating academic achievement, addressing our social and emotional well-being, and returning our school focus to moving forward. Next. So I've outlined each one in a little bit more detail. As far as academic achievement, we know the COVID effect on our needs. We need to ensure that we are providing remediation, but also enrichment. Very robust summer programs and credit recovery for students that need that. And as I said, school year 21-22, school year 22-23, and beyond. And then I think it was you, Mr. Woods, one of the priorities you outlined at the last meeting was to say that, you know, you want to make sure, and I'm sure the entire board shares your sentiments, as do I, that we want to make sure every dollar, there's a lot of funding, a lot of it is restricted to very certain things that we can spend it on. But if we can successfully braid our federal, state, and local funds with our money that's coming in from our ESSER funds and maximize every single dollar to focus on instructional delivery and recovery, that is certainly our priority for academic achievement. Next. Addressing social and emotional well-being, as I said, it's not just on remediation, but also on enrichment and really looking at our needs of our students when they come to us. Again, summer and school year, on our mental health, on behavioral support, and then certainly on staff professional development and support. You know, how can we really address emotional health? How can we address mental well-being? And so I think that's going to require some professional development and certainly supports. And as I said before, for our academic needs, we want to braid those funds that we're getting for restricted dollars with our operating budget to make sure we're maximizing every dollar on providing that support. Next. And as I said, the third goal is certainly to return our focus to moving our school system forward. I don't think it will be a short-term solution to put the pandemic behind us, but we certainly can start looking forward when our kids come back to really getting back to instructional excellence, identifying our needs, and addressing where our kids are. Addressing our capital needs, which of course are great, making sure that we're implementing some of the things that have been recommended in the strategic facilities plan, and then again, continuously improve the efficiencies of central office support. And I stated earlier some of our accomplishments during last year, during this very difficult school year, so I won't reiterate them now. They are many, believe me. I could spend all day listing many things that our school system has accomplished, even during the pandemic. Okay, next. So here is where, you know, we would like some additional feedback. This will help us before the next board meeting on March 9th. Even though it's only 2 weeks away, we would like to take the feedback from the elected board and certainly our student board member for how you see us evaluating our potential for our investment of funds for any of the goals in which I've outlined, or goals that you would also like to see happen. Strategically planning for this coming year and beyond. And then by having the feedback from you, that will allow me and my team to have a clear understanding of your expectations and what you would like to see included in the budget. I will say that the goals, although there are 3, there isn't a lot of there aren't a lot of changes in the actual line items. It will be more on ensuring that the current line items that we have are addressing the three goals. And next month we will present any realignment of staffing or anything along those lines. But really, it will be on getting the work done and really moving us towards those three goals. But we certainly would like to hear your feedback as well. So I think I'll stop here. Allison, can you scroll down to the next slide just real quick? Yeah, okay, so go back. I just want to make sure that was the last. Can you slide there? There you go. Okay, so I would like to get feedback from the board. I will be making notes. I know Mrs. Schweitzer will make notes, and then we will bring those back to our internal teams to start working on your feedback as well. So I'll open it up.
Okay, the floor is open for any ideas, suggestions, questions, concerns, etc., that you might have for the superintendent and her staff as we look forward to laying the groundwork for the FY22 budget. Well, I do think one of the top priorities that we have to invest in is summer school this summer. I think we have to ensure that we on every level educationally throughout the county, we provide opportunities to families to take advantage of remediation, to take advantage of perhaps credit recovery. If that appears as well, but I do feel, as an educator my entire life, that we're going to have a lot of students who are going to need to catch up in order to move forward. And we can't use next school year as the catch-up time. We need to entice, we need to invite, we need to do everything possible, from busing to feeding to doing anything and everything that we can with the monies that we've been given by the federal government to ensure that every family has the opportunity to get on a school bus in the morning, come to school for a morning or whatever, for remediation possibilities. But we can't, I don't think we can overdo that.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask Mrs. Schweitzer to stop sharing her screen, and then we'll all pop up again, and then we'll go back to sharing the screen. That way we can, there we go. Yeah, I think we can see everybody that way. And we had even though we had to put it together very quickly, I think we had a very successful summer program last year, and I anticipate that it will be even better this year.
I'll throw in a couple more because I'm old and I'll forget them if I don't say them. Going forward as well, one of our major items is we have a 5-year strategic plan that we've articulated to the county commissioners. In doing that 5-year plan, this year is a very important year for us to lay the groundwork for that plan in terms of the footprint of our system. So I think a part of the budget certainly would have to be committed to feasibility study in the fall. Other items that might be a part of having that plan ready to present to the IEC, to have that plan ready to be presented to the commissioners for their adoption. So, part of our budget process this year is getting us in line, with the override of the governor's veto and the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. We have this 8911 possibility coming forward for us that we've all dreamed of, and now is a reality. So we as a school board must ensure that we've got everything ready to present to the commissioners in a timely fashion, which sometimes means money. So that has to be a part of our thinking ahead, is what kinds of monies would we need to be prepared to do those things. Monica?
In the budget, do you propose that we will have to eliminate any programs or courses this year is one of my questions.
No, I don't anticipate that at this time. No.
Will we be introducing any new curriculum?
No.
Okay. I guess we'll just continue on, which we did have, was it carryover money, Allison, 2 weeks ago, that we used to move forward on our new reading series? Is that correct?
Yes, that was a budget transfer from a positive budget variance that we were seeing as a result of not needing substitutes during that winter session.
Karen?
As far as the curriculum question, in addition, the state has passed a new curriculum for health, and Becky Aiken is chairing a major initiative with, she's taking the new health curriculum and overlaying multidisciplinary lessons with the health curriculum. She's overlaying, and not by herself, but she's got committees working on it, but she's overlaying the ELA, the math, science, social studies, and we're overlaying the mindfulness curriculum that we are bringing into the county through that health curriculum. It's pretty exciting.
And I'm sorry, I don't anticipate there to be a significant budget impact.
There shouldn't be any budgeted impact.
I'm sorry, yeah, sorry.
And what about our devices? I know that we have got some with some grant money, maybe in CARES. Does it seem like our devices seem to be pretty good, that we won't need to be purchasing many new ones?
Well, luckily, when we talk about braiding the funds, a lot of those federal dollars, those other dollars that we're getting can be used for technology enhancements. So we certainly have had a refresh cycle that we continue to dedicate operating funds, but we're hoping to be able to use some of the other funding to purchase any additional devices that we may need. But if you remember, we did order a significant amount immediately upon, getting Schoology and those kinds of things. The shipment was delayed because everybody else was ordering them as well. And so they didn't come in until a little bit later. So we're still actually deploying those. So I think right now, we're in very good shape and will continue to be. But subsequent operating budgets will always include that refresh cycle, because as each one of those devices, loses its useful life, then we will have to continue to refresh those. But I think we're in very good shape right now.
Jason?
Yeah, to go along with Ms. Rinker's question, outside the devices in the budget, is there room for additional technology, both to be used in classroom curriculum or with the devices that we currently have that can be kind of incorporated into classroom instruction?
Absolutely. And some of those funds that I mentioned for devices can be used for that as well. Rating and making sure we're maximizing as many dollars as we can for additional technology to improve instruction, braided with, our operating funds. But yes.
Yeah, Mr. Van Sickle, we have a refresh cycle in place for the interactive boards that are in the classrooms. Because of the shift to a virtual learning environment, there are different ancillary devices that are needed, more cameras or different things. So we are able to use federal dollars for those needs as well. And we have a placeholder for next fiscal year in the federal restricted funds. In our operating budget, we did pull that piece out in FY21, and we're keeping it out again for FY22 because we're going to be supplementing with the federal dollars.
And just to go along with that, what about additional software for the devices for specific classes that students could use to kind of get a leg up in whatever they're kind of learning in that class?
I would say the same thing. There is money built in. We usually have, before we implement anything, we usually have a review committee, just as we did with Schoology, that looks at any other software that we want to use. We've done the same thing with any new programs that the students may want to use in technology. But from what I'm hearing, you believe we should make sure that that's a priority in the upcoming budget, correct? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we see students move through and move into college or technical college, whatever it may be, the use of technology is there, it's ever changing. So as much as we can expose them, I think the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to go back just real quickly to Mrs. Rinker's question about curriculum. And again, I don't foresee anything major or that would have major budget impacts, but there could be legislation that would pass that would require us to implement something as well. So I wanted to make sure I clarified that.
Monica?
That was another question I had for legislation. Do you see anything? I know it's not over with, but any bills or anything you're watching in particular that might make an impact? Unfunded mandates that might impact the board?
Well, we watch all of them very carefully. Dr. Wilderson watches everything and things that would impact employees, which are a lot. Mrs. Schweitzer watches them. I watch them. There are some that could have an impact. My guess is similar to what my goals are for the budget. I think that those that will pass will probably be focused on ensuring the recovery efforts. I don't know that they will introduce anything that's brand new this year. I could be wrong. And I know Mr. Glotfelty is on MABE as well and is helping us to track the legislation also.
There's a lot of bills out there that could impact us, but whether they'll pass or not. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
I sent out to the board a list of a lot of those bills, so I'm available to. We discussed all of them in great detail. So if anybody has any questions on what the status is or what the impact would be, please let me know, and I'll try to. It's just a voluminous amount, and like I say, a lot of them may not even pass. I got a question on the budget. When
Go ahead, Ron.
when our students return to
Yes.
am I here? When our students return, I mean, we are all anticipating there may be some serious issues that they have to deal with, that we have to deal with in the system, behavioral issues, mental health issues. And do you think we need more money to train teachers and staff on positive behavioral and support interventions? That I know you got a number of teachers well trained in that, but I think we could probably increase the number that really have that type of training. So is there a need in the budget to try to support that training, and also to marshal additional mental health resources in our schools?
Well, the short answer is yes. And the second goal in addressing mental health behavioral needs certainly agrees with you that we really don't know. We have a couple of months until the end of the school year, so we may not see a lot of the behavior starting to bubble up immediately, but we will. And certainly in August, when our students, I'm hoping, come back full time, we really don't know what their needs are going to be. We don't know what the summer will bring. And a couple of years ago, we had some very high flyers in PBIS, positive behavior intervention supports. And we have since incorporated that into every school. So we definitely would benefit from some additional professional development and working with those schools who have just recently implemented it. And of course, it looked a lot different, and we really weren't able to implement the program as it should be during the pandemic. So we have all of those things wrapped together that we will need to do to address positive behavior. But the short answer is yes. And as far as additional resources, I think Mrs. Rinker asked about that last month. We've worked pretty hard to get additional school counselors and school psychologists, and a lot of those, we have our administrator in residence working on behavior support as well. So we have increased some of those resources to, I think, much better ratio for our students. But certainly we are always looking at areas that we can improve that as well.
Other questions? Monica?
I guess mine's not more a question. It's just to say what I said 2 weeks ago. Something that's most important to me, again, is getting the kids back on track from COVID. It's been a year, and virtual learning is not always for all students. Some, known fact, I would be one of them, do better in person with a teacher in front of them. Some students, it's hard for them to sit in front of the device. So my concern is getting the kids back where they needed to be, getting remediation, enhancing with different things, doing some evaluation maybe to see where kids are that they need to be brought up to speed. So anything to help the students get back on track from the loss of time, that's what's most important to me. And I'm sure that probably will involve that if the budget would allow, more people would always be better. Then you would have smaller groups where there's large classrooms to get more instructional time.
I agree with everything you said. Virtual learning is not a replacement for in class with their classroom teacher. That's why we have certified teachers. You're absolutely right. And we will certainly, I think more is always, it is always good to be looking at areas that we need to increase our staffing, but also it's working efficiently and making sure, as Mr. Glockfeldy said, that those teachers are trained, that those employees, that all of our support staff are working with our students. And I think, last month, it really worked out nicely to have that focus on social emotional well-being, because that's just a tip of the iceberg of what we're doing in our schools and what we will do, as they come back to us.
I guess one of the questions I would have might have been for Mr. Wazlowski, but we didn't ask him to be here. So Ms. Schweitzer, you might be more in tune with it. Will there be modernizations, construction, replacements, et cetera, that we won't be asking for either state or local funding that would impact where we put monies in our upcoming budget?
Are you meaning capital?
Yeah, well, things that we won't be asking for capital improvements, items that would, maintenance types of items that we've not done, but we're not going to be asking for any funding for it, but it would impact the overall budget. Do you see anything along those lines?
Not in terms of maintenance or operation. We are planning to move the sanitizing items into the federal funding. That would have been an add to our unrestricted operating budget. But really, the federal funding we're receiving is targeted towards instruction and mental health or cleaning. And so all the other needs are still in our operating budget. So we're carefully peeling away what the extra that we can supplement with federal funds, like with licensing. We have in our unrestricted budget an amount that of licenses for remediation for tier 2 reading. And that's a certain number of licenses that we get pretty much every year. However, this coming year, we know that we're probably going to need more licenses. So those extra ones, the variance is going to come out of the federal budget, or the federal funds, but we're still going to need the base layer. So at this point in time, we are still going to need to make the scheduled improvements that are in our comprehensive maintenance plan. There isn't anything that we're peeling off that we're deferring a year at this point. I hope that answered your question.
It does. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to get some clarification or some knowledge about whether we are facing any big ticket items that are not capital, but yet that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to pay for, we have to buy whatever. But it doesn't sound like there's anything on the horizon that we're aware of that we've put off for a couple of years that it's getting to the point now we need to do something.
No, we pretty much have a rotation cycle for everything. We try very hard from the instructional side with the licenses, the textbook resources, the student devices, the staff devices. And then, now Mr. Wazlowski is hitting hard, trying to stay on track with all of the roofs, the vehicle. We're getting back to the vehicles. We have to stay on track, and those pieces of, even though they're large ticket items and they rotate, it kind of all works out every year that it's about the same amount of money, if that makes sense.
It does, makes perfect sense, actually. Yeah, I mean, it truly does. Other questions or concerns? Yes, Monica.
What Mr. Woods was saying was making me think, since we have more students with devices when they come back to school, the concern is, I know the expectation is that children would have their devices charged before they come to school, but sometimes something might happen. You don't have time to charge it, or maybe some of them they're older and their batteries just might not last the entire day. No fault of the student. So do we have to put in some different wiring or areas where the devices can be charged every day? That might be an impact to the budget.
Well, we actually discussed that. We've discussed that several times, just discussed it again yesterday. And I do mention it in the reopening presentation, which I know you probably haven't seen the entire thing because I was adding to it all day. But that is, we don't want to have cords and wires running everywhere to ensure that they're charging. We still have stations, but Mr. Gank is looking at a number of solutions to be able to charge devices so that they are ready for students at all times. Exactly as you said, if they forget to charge them, or if it goes dead for whatever reason. So we are working on a number of solutions for that as well.
Yeah, I think in your update that you're going to present here in a few minutes, it does talk about things like that, talks about ventilation, talks about a number of things that certainly we can use federal funding to enhance the safety of all of our schools.
Right, and braiding our operating funds that we're talking about with all those federal funds to ensure, again, that we're getting every dollar that we can and spending them the way they are intended.
Rodney?
One of the Senate bills that's out there, Senate Bill I think it's 448. It provides that the school system can use alternate transportation for transporting small numbers of students instead of having to use a bus. Are we pretty well situated with vehicles if that legislation does pass to be able to, if you had to go transport 3 or 4 students to one place or another, to actually be able to utilize the transportation we have, or is that something we have to think about in the budget?
Well, we do have, we still have the Durangos that we purchased a couple of years ago. We still have the robotics Suburban that we purchased a couple of years ago. So we do have a number of vehicles that are for small group student travel. That used to be, we had to ask permission every year from the state superintendent, and that used to be approved every year. But unfortunately, this past year, it was not approved, because we've done that for a number of years, so that, a bus to take, 4 kids to, some sort of maybe it's a Skills USA competition or something, it was much more cost effective to take a small vehicle. So we were always allowed to do that. However, last year that wasn't approved. So we were during the pandemic, we weren't taking field trips anyway. So I think they've introduced that into legislation so that we don't have to ask for that permission every year. But I think we're okay on vehicles. We do, we will, again, as Mrs. Schweitzer said, they are on a refresh cycle, so that when we're ready, we will need to replace those Durangos. But right now, I think they're still within their useful life, for sure.
Right. One other question for Allison. There's $150 million was put in the governor's supplemental budget for education. Have you got any indication of how that's going to be distributed or what we're going to get and what we can use that for?
Mr. Gladfeldy, at our CFO meeting today, we received no information. They had no information on the supplemental budget. They had no information on the state tutoring grant. And they had no information on the Kerwin veto override. So it ended up being a 10-minute call, and then we were off. So we're hopeful that as the legislative session continues and there's more clarification once we have the state budget approved, that we have more clarification on all of that. There's also indication that there may be a second bill to clean up some of Kerwin. You know, there's a lot out there that is still unknown about that, and so they believe that there may be another piece of legislation about that. So we are hopeful. You know, every Tuesday we get on at 1 o'clock, and we're hopeful that we'll have more information as the legislative session goes further on.
Yeah, I think that bill will be introduced. I think that clean up the blueprint, and it might be to come up with new schedules of implementation, those type things. So yeah, you're right. We'll have to wait and see what it is. But I think there may be more money coming because of that $150 million supplemental budget.
Yes, we believe there is. However, we don't know if it will be restricted, if it'll be unrestricted, how it'll be distributed, you know.
Just wondered if you'd heard anything.
Monica?
In the last year or two, we've had money built in the budget for emergency repairs. Are we going to still have that plan to be in the budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Other items, I know the superintendent still has some more in her presentation to give to us. Still got a couple more, another page or two there. Do you want to move on to that now, Barb? You want to go ahead and put that up on the screen?
Yes, that would be great. If Mrs. Schweitzer could share her screen again. This will move into the, we'll be discussing the revenue, but this will really factor into the request to the county commissioners. So Mrs. Schweitzer will be discussing these estimated revenues, and then we will open that up for any additional questions before I make a recommendation about the request.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Schweitzer.
At the last board meeting, we presented the estimated revenue, and we indicated that within the governor's budget, there's language that indicates a hold harmless amount. And there are actually two pieces within the blueprint funding: hold harmless for declining enrollment, and then hold harmless for transportation. And that amount is $1,643,142 for declining enrollment and $9,000 for transportation. Furthermore, within Section 10 of the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act, it does indicate that receiving this hold harmless grant is contingent on the county's fiscal 22 appropriation of local funds to the County Board of Education operating budget exceeding the local appropriation for fiscal year 2021. So effectively, what the governor is implementing is that if the state is going to hold harmless in flat funding or a small increase, then the county should also participate in this hold harmless. So unfortunately, if the county or the local government does not participate, then the state funding will also not come to the LEA, or the Local Education Association. So what I've provided for the board are two columns. The green is the with the hold harmless. So those are the variances, year-over-year variances, if we were to receive a hold harmless. So that is $1 more on the county maintenance of effort. And then the pieces of funding from the estimated state draft revenue dollars. Then we have the red columns are without the hold harmless. So that would be provided that the county government funded Garrett County Board of Education at the legal minimum of county maintenance of effort. And that amount is $27,779,806. If that happened, then we would forego the hold harmless from the above portion of the state funding. This would result in a year-over-year variance of over $2 million. So it is the recommendation of the superintendent that the board request of county government $28,170,095 for FY22 operating budget appropriation.
Okay, in order to have discussion on this, we're going to need a recommendation from the superintendent and a motion and a second, and then we can discuss it since this is an action item. So Superintendent Baker, do you have a specific, I assume you're going to echo what Mrs. Schweitzer just said, but do you have a recommendation?
I am going to echo exactly what Mrs. Schweitzer, she's the numbers person, but it's still in front of us, the $28,170,095. You know, the 5 years that I've been superintendent, we have reinstated the presentations to the Garrett County commissioners. And in those 5 years, we have only requested maintenance of effort. We have tried to really work with the commissioners and understanding that, you know, we are the largest part of their budget, and, you know, they have a lot of other things they need to fund. But in this case, you know, I think losing out on over, you know, $1.6 million in state funding for them. And I know 390,000 is not a very small number, but $2 million loss for the school system. You know, and that if we lost any programs, when I answered Mrs. Ranker and said I don't anticipate any programs or loss of staffing, you know, that's what that $2 million would be. So my recommendation absolutely is that we request of the commissioners that they fund the entire amount that Mrs. Schweitzer has listed there at $28,170,095.
Okay, there's a recommendation from the superintendent. Is there a motion to request from the Garrett County Commissioners for the FY22 budget $28,170,095? Is there a motion as such?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Dr. Paul.
I'll second.
Seconded by, I think it was, okay, Rodney, seconded by Mr. Gladfelty. We can now have discussion. Anybody have clarification needs or questions, concerns, et cetera, before we vote?
Just clarification, we are asking the commissioners for $1 more than they gave us last year. Is that correct?
Allison, you want to clarify that? It's actually $1 more, but it's more than $1 more than the year before.
Well, in total, for the full allocation, it is $1 more than the FY21 allocation. And we did receive indication from MSDE that satisfies the language in the bill.
Thank you.
Other questions, clarification? Okay. Obviously, I think Mrs. Schweitzer, you and Mrs. Baker have presented the dilemma that we're in as a Board of Education, in that in order to take advantage of a very large windfall of money from the state, $1.643 million, it's incumbent upon us to get the necessary help from the Garrett County Commissioners. Or we've got some budget considerations that are certainly going to be awfully difficult, if not near impossible. So with that being said, if there, Monica, did you have a question? I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, I did. So if this passes, what is an expected or an idea of when the commissioners are to get back with us with the dollar amount so the budget can proceed more with more details?
Well, we have the presentation to the commissioners scheduled for mid-March. I believe it is on March 14th or 15th. I don't know that they would give us an answer prior to that. I don't know if the answer would come before they've developed their entire budget. I know that we're not the only group that presents to them. I don't know, Mrs. Schweitzer, in your discussions with Mr. Weeks, if he's just given you any indication. I have not received any indication from the commissioners at all on when we might know about our funding for this year, but I'll defer to Mrs. Schweitzer. Do you know an answer?
I would anticipate that we would not have an answer until after our presentation on March 16th. That's their opportunity to ask the board questions, to ask Mrs. Baker questions, myself, so that they get a thorough understanding. And at that point, then hopefully afterwards, we would be able to get an answer pretty quickly.
Monica.
So then would it be best to presume that we almost need a budget without the hold harmless and a budget with the hold harmless in there figured out?
Mrs. Schweitzer, you want to address that?
I do not have the staff to do two budgets. I'm sorry. So I have been directed to assume that we are going to get the green, get the hold harmless. And then as we work with our principals, as we work with lead and cabinet, we discuss options that if we have to move to the red columns, triggers, if you will, that we can pull as immediate changes to the budget. But if we are going down the red column without the hold harmless, that's going to delay our budget calendar. You know, I have it here in my office, and we have it set that we would like to try to have a Q&A April 13th, and then call for board approval at the May meeting. And that would likely be delayed a month at least while we gather information. And we honestly would have to go back to this budget cycle, to this step one, to internal planning, because $2 million to our unrestricted budget is quite significant. And you don't want to make knee-jerk reactions that have a ripple effect that you're unaware of. So it's very important that if that is the case, that we sort of stop, we huddle up, as Mr. Woods might say, we figure out what our next move is, and then we punt. We do something different. We have to make very, very difficult decisions. And so there will not be two budgets that are presented with the superintendent's draft budget on March 9th. There will be one, and it will be assuming very hopefully that we are in this green column with the hold harmless funding.
I think if that were to occur, Allison, two things. We would not punt, but we might have to throw a Hail Mary in order to figure out what we're going to do.
Well, you need a budget to work with anyway. So if you base a budget on the green model, that we get the necessary funding of the commissioners to hold us harmless. If we don't, then you're looking at aspects of that budget you've approved that where you're going to cut. And so isn't that right, Allison? You would just be looking at where you can make up that $2 million, whether it's reduction in personnel or whatever.
Well, I think the point that everyone's trying to get across to anybody who's watching, the public certainly will try to educate over the next couple of months, is that $2 million would be some very severe, drastic, unintended cuts to our system that would affect virtually everybody in the system in some capacity. So that would be a very detrimental thing to happen. We're hopeful it won't. We have all the confidence in the world that we're going to have a good budget, but we have to plan for both segments.
I prefer not doing that until we had to.
Right. Okay, any other questions? There is a motion on the floor. All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion of requesting from county government $28,170,095 to be a portion of our FY22 budget. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And it is a unanimous vote. Thank you, Mrs. Schweitzer, for all of your work helping to prepare this, and Superintendent Baker for all of your work in presenting it as well. This is always the most
Yes.
difficult time of the year, trying to figure out how we move forward.
And as Mrs. Schweitzer referenced, here are our next steps. The next board meeting, the March 16th meeting, the presentation to the commissioners, and then you'll see April 13th where you can ask any additional questions regarding the budget book. And then certainly we're hoping for adoption May 11th. That calendar will have to be readjusted if we don't get the money, but I will go along with everybody else and be very optimistic that we will. So thank you very much, and we will make that request.
Okay, if you could turn us back to there you go. Thank you very much. We just have one other item, and this is the change to the agenda. And it's an update. Superintendent Baker is going to take us through some new items as school is set to start next Monday, at least for some of our students. And so she's got a presentation to make for us in that regard. So go ahead.
Well, I'm going to share my screen to make the presentation, but I'll just do that and then I'll explain the purpose. Oh, wait a second. Okay, can you see that? Okay, so there were still some lingering questions about the reopening plan. And so I wanted to take the opportunity tonight. I'm going to put this presentation on our website and use the information to get out additional information to families. But I think what I really wanted to show was when the board voted to return students March 1st and March 15th, there was a tremendous amount of work that needed to be done in order to get us to this point where we're ready for kids to come back next Monday. And I'm very excited about all of the progress. So this is the purpose of this really is twofold. One, to really show the public and the board members I think we're very ready to have our kids come back, but it's also to answer any lingering questions about air quality, cleaning supplies, schedules, those kinds of things. So I will go ahead and start, and I can see people on the side, but Mr. Woods, if you want to stop me for questions, I can take them in the middle, or I can go through the presentation and wait till the end, whichever you prefer.
We'll probably ask as we go through. That way we can I don't think there'll be a lot of questions. Most of these things we have seen before, but it's in a different format. And I think it does send a very positive message. So please go ahead.
All right, here we go. So we did our survey and we were very very pleased with the results. 560 students decided to remain virtual, or about 16%. Over almost 3,000 have decided to return to in-person, which is 84%. When I created this slide, there were only 62 students that were not registered, but I think we are down now to 58 or 59. Even today, we still had some families register. And so, a great deal of thanks needs to go out to our principals, our directors, our teachers, our pupil services staff. Once we sent the initial survey, they were really working with families to try and reach everybody. So I'm very pleased with the amount of students that clearly our families are ready to come back to in-person learning.
Susan, let me stop
go
you there.
ahead.
With the registered students, as a clarification for those watching, those are people that have not indicated us, do they want to come back in person or do they want to come virtual yet? Those are not indications that those folks are leaving the school system. They're just
Correct.
not.
Out of all of the students that we currently have enrolled in Garrett County Public Schools, those are students that have not indicated to us whether they want to come back in person or remain virtual.
Thank you.
And so we've had a number of teams that have worked very hard. This is just a few of them in this presentation this evening, and then you'll see them there. I'm going to outline each one for you. So our instructional team had to take the data of virtual learners and in-person learners to start planning all of the instructional places and student needs. Distancing, moving classrooms, determining the needs of each classroom, arrival times, lunch times, dismissal procedures. All of that had to be worked out at each individual school. We also have been working to secure additional staffing so that we can supply for supplies, for social distancing, to make sure we're meeting safety guidelines, and for hybrid learning. We've built master schedules to include at least an hour and a half of Tier 1 recovery, social emotional needs, and intervention. Principals and teachers have been expected to build some social and emotional learning into their daily schedule. That's for elementary students, but our middle and high school teachers will be focusing as well on social and emotional needs with their itinerant staff and certainly their teachers as well. Mrs. Rinker, I can see you. So do you have your hand up?
Yes, go ahead.
I can't see everybody, but I can see you.
Okay. In moving the classrooms, at one of our meetings, you said there's a possibility we might have to locate a classroom, a grade level, into a different facility. Did we have to locate anybody in different facilities, or will they remain in their home schools?
We did not have to relocate anyone to a different facility. So we had to implement the schedules to ensure that there is direct support at all schools from pupil services staff. That's the staff we were talking about earlier, school counselors, school psychologists, pupil personnel workers, social workers, our mental health coordinator. Our two instructional directors, our special education director, our executive director, have all done building level walkthroughs in every building to see how central office can support each school, the needs of each school. And there was a lot of brainstorming on solutions to challenges. And several schools have scheduled some virtual walkthroughs and information sessions for families.
Superintendent Baker, I would also just, for those viewing, the elected board this Friday will break up. Some of us will go to the northern end, some of us will go to the southern end, as we're going to do some building walkthroughs as well for just a few minutes, just 10 or 15 minutes, to show our appreciation more than anything else for all the hard work that those folks have done in those buildings, and congratulate them on all the safety protocols they put in place. So we look forward to seeing them as well.
Thank you. And I will be contacting those principals and letting them know that you're coming. And I think you will see a lot of consistency, even though each school is different. There are a lot of safety protocols in place. Also, we talked many times this evening about mental health support. We have 2 staff members that are certified through the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. That was all through the school year last year as well. They worked with the superintendent's cabinet, then the pupil services staff. We were training nurses and then additional pupil services folks. And then now we're working on some workshops for teachers on resilience training. And I think this will be just another layer to help support our emotional needs of both our staff and our students. GCASC is the Garrett County Association of Student Councils, and they have an initiative entitled Work to Be Well. And their goal is to empower students and our schools to improve teen mental health by putting mental physical health first, saying something when you don't feel well, and trying to identify coping strategies when things, as we know, for all of us, including teenagers, when things, don't go well. So we appreciate, I think there's another slide from the student council. They did a survey of secondary students to find out information about their mental health and academic success. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Miller, but it really focused on a lot of the challenges with virtual learning. But what they want to do is take the results from that survey, apply them to students coming back to in-person, but also working with the kids that are will continue to stay virtual. And some of the adaptability struggles that they face, changes in schedules, expectations, workloads, they're still going to face that when they come back in person. Technology issues, computer literacy, time management, and of course, self-motivation and engagement, which I'm sure they will also focus when they come back to in-person. So we really appreciate the work of the student councils as well. They've come together to really make this a priority for our students. Okay, so the next department that has been working extremely hard in the last, since March 13th, but really to make sure our students come back safely is our maintenance and operations department. We believe we have plenty of PPE. We have face coverings, shields, gowns, we have gloves. And then you'll notice on some of the cleaning supplies, if they're marked with an asterisk, they are specifically approved for killing COVID-19. We have gloves, hand sanitizer. There are certain brands of disinfectant that Mr. Wazlowski has deployed, and lots of disinfectant wipes. The custodians have what's called a Fight Back RTU disinfectant, another something called Shockwave, Halt disinfectant, Clorox 360, which is a spray disinfectant that has a little handheld sprayer that they can spray it with. And they also have, if there were to be a classroom that was identified, as having an outbreak, they do have PPE suits that they can use. Those are just for custodians to wear to go in and clean those classrooms. We've provided, we had training earlier last year, and I think Mr. Wazlowski has had additional training with the school bus contractors and the drivers. They have disinfectant sprayers, face coverings, paper towels, things that they are going to need. So we have cleaning protocols in place, just normal cleaning, soap, water, various cleaning products to use daily, wiping down desks. And then after that routine is complete, all areas will be disinfected using a COVID-approved disinfectant solution. After hours, by our second and third shift staff, they will be doing additional heavy duty disinfecting. And then we have the proper PPE, as you can see there. The disinfecting that will go on during the school day when our students return will have an emphasis on the high contact areas, student desks, tables, doorknobs, light switches, sinks, toilets, bathrooms, certainly our nurse's office. And they have those Clorox 360 machines and then a handheld battery operated sprayer. So we will be doing quite a bit of disinfecting as well. Now, we've talked a good bit about our indoor air quality. We do have a way of increasing our ventilation by opening our outside air dampers. Those are usually at 10%. We're going to 15. And then all of our air handlers will run 24/7 to constantly be bringing in outside fresh air. They will be open 100% when weather is permitting, 2 hours before school starts and after school ends. And then all of the exhaust fans will run trying to recirculate the outside air. And then our air filters are checked, cleaned, and replaced very frequently. But we also have another plan in place in addition to that. In addition to ensuring that outside fresh air is coming in, we do have several areas, Crellin, Swan Meadow, Hickory, and a few CTE classrooms at Northern High School that do not have that system that can bring in outside air. So we are going to be installing ultraviolet germicidal irradiation, UVGI systems, and we're going to use our ESSER funding for this. And this will include portable units in those schools and spaces. And then we're also going to look at health suites, the main offices, the kitchens, those kinds of places. And then we have a plan moving forward to equip many of our areas with that, so that we can have that long beyond the pandemic and really have some very good clean air technology that Mr. Wazlowski says that is some of the best available today. So that UV cleaning will be an extra step to improve our air quality and improve our disinfection.
Mrs. Ranker?
For number 2, the long-term plan, would that be something that we might see in our budget, or would that be with CARES funding or grant money, or how do you?
There is a plan to present that to the board. I'm not sure if it's the March meeting or if we've scheduled that for the April meeting. But yes, you'll be given more information about that and the costs associated. Mr. Glotfelty. You're on mute, I think.
You're on mute, Mr. Gutfelding.
On the UVGI systems, did you compare them with the HEPA filter systems to see which one was superior? Do you think the UVGIs are a better fit for us, and why so?
Well, I know Mr. was, and I believe he's on standby. We could bring him in. I believe he did look at the filters. I think they were much more expensive, more difficult to install. And I don't think they fit with our current HVAC system. Okay. And I think that's why we looked at these UVI systems instead. I can get back to you on more information on that at the March 9th meeting or get you information on that. I know he's looked into all kinds of filters and other things, but this was a long-term solution, I think, to meet additional needs as well.
Okay, I was just wanting to make sure that you considered all options.
Yeah, I consider everything.
I think the UVGI system says in their brochures that it will eliminate 99.9% of airborne bacteria. I said to the superintendent and Mr. Wazlowski the other day, actually, my wife and I have one of those systems in a property that we own in South Carolina, and rental property. And we put it in about 5 years ago, but just simply because of mold that can, come in those kinds of properties. And in the 5 years that we've had the blue light, the UV light in our HVAC system, we have absolutely seen an incredible difference in the feel of the air in that rental property. So yeah, we believe in it strongly. It worked great. We've never seen anything. My wife is highly addictive to mold, and if there's any mold anywhere, she's gonna immediately have a reaction. So I think it's a great idea, and it's certainly one of those can last forever. You just replace the bulb whenever the time comes up, and the system's back online again.
Yeah, we are hoping this is a very good long-term solution as well, not just for COVID, But as you said, for a number of other things that can impact our students with allergies, with sensitivities, those kinds of things.
For
So
the flu. I mean, all of
exactly, yeah,
these
not
things.
just COVID. Yeah,
Does
exactly.
everything.
And I believe I've received clarification that March 9th is our presentation for this, Mrs. Rinker. So you'll know more about it, the full system then.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. So I think I shared this verbally at the last meeting, but I just wanted to reiterate that we do have a plan with transportation as well. Our buses will start running their regular routes on March 1st. I've spoken to a number of drivers and they seem very eager to come back and see their kids again as well. We're still asking if parents do wish to transport, that will help us with physical distancing on the buses. We are asking students on March 1st, they will be sitting 1 to a seat. March 15th, the maximum capacity of 42 students. We can achieve that, we hope. Directly behind the driver will be unoccupied. Students that live in the same household can sit together. And then we will perhaps be looking at additional routes in the Oakland area if need be to ensure physical distancing. Our drivers and students will be required to wear their face covering. Buses, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, they have been provided with the same cleaning materials. And then we will be doing assigned seating, because that way, if we do have a student that is positive, we can immediately contact trace. It says contract, but contact trace everyone they've been around, including on the school bus. So I think that assigned seating will be helpful. Our IT department, we had several questions at the last meeting and then again this evening. Just as with some of the cleaning, we wanted to focus on solutions that would benefit our students long-term. We have secured laptops for our long-term substitutes. We have ordered mobile interactive displays for teachers who have to move from their normal classroom, so they will have the tools necessary that they can teach in a different room if need be. There is we've looked into and have purchased some remote controlled web cameras. Instead of automatically following the teacher would have to control the camera, but that can be done if they need to move around the room. We have purchased additional microphones and speakers so that they can be heard better through their mask. And especially if you'll see in the pictures that students will be separated. And so there will be students clear in the back of the room. So we think the microphones and speakers will definitely help that. That's the next bullet. And then as Mrs. Rinker asked earlier, Mr. Gank is exploring a number of solutions that will help keep our laptops charged during the school day for those students that will still need to use their laptop during the day. Food and nutrition, as you know, I'm proud of every single team. This particular department never stopped anything all summer long and have served 732,501 meals since March 18th of 2020. All meals will be free through the end of the school year, with breakfast and lunch, breakfast served daily in the cafeteria and classrooms. Lunch will be served daily in cafeteria, classrooms, and some other areas. And all items served will be individually wrapped for safety purposes. Virtual students will still be receiving meals. They do need to sign up for that if they wish to participate. And they will receive 7 days of breakfast, lunch, snack, and supper. And families will be contacted and they can sign up. And then for students that return in person, they can receive meals for their non-school days, which right now would be Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they do not have to sign up, and they would get 3 days of breakfast, lunch, and I guess that's supposed to say supper, and 7 days of snack and supper as well. So our in-person students can continue to receive meals beyond the school day as well. All right, so as you are aware, we've done a lot of PR around the fact that we have been doing a lot of vaccinations. Our final date is set for this Friday. I did receive confirmation today that that is a go, and we do have our doses, even though the health department has been impacted greatly by the weather. But we've been trying to provide our nurses to help as much as possible, but we have about 75% of our staff now who have received, and by Friday will have received their second COVID-19 vaccine. What we're trying to reach, we know that not all staff and our students are not inoculated, but according to the CDC, herd immunity occurs when enough people become immune to a disease to make it spread unlikely. As a result, the entire community is protected, even those who are not themselves immune. Herd immunity is usually achieved through vaccination. So thereby, as more of our staff and community become vaccinated, it becomes safer for us all. So we're very hopeful that those who have an appointment for this Friday will come for their second dose. And we did have a lot of people after we did our session. We had a lot of people call and ask if they could get the vaccine, and that number has gone up, and now we're at about 75%. So I'm very pleased with that. And if you haven't gotten your second shot yet, I will see you Friday, hopefully, at the Medco building. We did sign up for the state. Governor Hogan mentioned it in one of his eligible for COVID-19 testing. It is not for diagnostic purposes. It's not designed to identify folks that are asymptomatic, but rather individuals who are symptomatic or have been identified as close contacts. And March 1st, they've assured us that they will be here for the first set of students returning. We're getting 2,280 of the rapid tests and 1,125 of the other tests. And right now we're developing protocols for voluntary student and employee testing. And what's really nice is, again, we have worked with the health department to help them with their testing and their vaccines. Now they're going to help us. So let's say, for instance, we unfortunately have a child that becomes symptomatic, and we isolate them, and then we ask a parent to come and pick them up. We can test that child using one of the tests that we've received from this program, but we will also go out to the car, and one of our certified nurses will give you a test as well for your family, whoever picks you up. It could be your mom and dad or grandma in your home, in your household, so that we can, again, not just identify a student who may be symptomatic, and of course that's completely voluntary, but again, it's a service that we're going to provide. All of these things helping, I think, to keep our students in school once we do return them to in person. So I'm really excited about this and partnership and our ability to be able to do this. For athletics, we have improved our locker room protocols, and the locker rooms, we've rearranged things so that we've ensured social distancing by reducing our occupancy. And we've also implemented some sport-specific modifications to each spring sports as per the National Federation of High Schools. And we're also very excited that our school resource officers will be returning to all schools on March 1st as per their assigned school. So we think we've not only focused on our school spaces, but also our other spaces and the importance of our SROs returning to us as well. We have excuse me. I had a moment, I had to step away. I do want to talk a little bit about the mitigation strategies that I really feel a way to describe it as a layered approach. We will be asking everyone, students, staff, bus drivers, anyone that's entering our buildings, to please wear their face coverings appropriately and consistently. We will be frequently disinfecting things. We are going to encourage frequent hand washing, physical distancing to the greatest extent possible. You'll see in one of the pictures, most schools have implemented some sort of traffic pattern change so that students aren't interacting with one another. Vaccinations, I've already talked about. Every school has a registered nurse, And then we will be providing additional guidance to our staff, students, and parents to please stay home when they're feeling ill. And I think that will go a long way. We've said many times, we're making every effort to socially, physically distance people to the greatest extent possible of 6 feet. There will be times, younger children, some classrooms, that we aren't able to always remain exactly 6 feet. I want to make sure that I'm upfront, honest, transparent about that. However, with all of the other mitigation strategies, the testing, the vaccination, all of the things you see here listed, you know, all of those things together will help prevent the spread of the disease. So I just wanted to make sure that I emphasize that this evening, that it's one of the many things that we're doing to mitigate our risk.
I think it's important to add to that, Superintendent Baker, that the CDC is now saying that, you know, other than masks, which is an absolute must in order to get out of the pandemic, that they don't budge at all on that, that everyone must wear a mask and wear it correctly. The next most important thing are layered approaches, using social distancing, using all the different things that you just outlined there. So that follows to a T what the CDC is now saying are the safest protocols that you can put in place is a large layer of mitigation practices.
Thank you. Yep, absolutely. This is a new slide again that I added today that the board members haven't seen yet, but this is the latest trend data that I have mentioned several times that Mr. Troutwine has been helping with. You'll see the target at the top, the 5 and 15, and you'll see that our numbers are improving every day, or at least staying well within the original recommendation of a 7-day positivity percentage below 5 and a 7-day case rate per 1,000 below 15. Mr. Troutwine told me that the numbers in gold are different, but all of the other numbers that remain in green, they did, again, there was an uptick, I believe, on February 22nd, yesterday, that was after a weekend, but you'll see, again, they are well below, and I believe they're still announcing that Garrett County has the best overall metrics in the state. And I think we've done really, really well and seen the numbers back where they were almost at the beginning when our numbers were very good. So we will continue to monitor these metrics, but it shows that what we're all doing is working. So I have a number of pictures. Some people sent them to me, some I took. This one is the Southern High School cafeteria. Certainly doesn't lend itself very well to student interaction, but it definitely will keep students 6 feet apart and allow them to eat in the cafeteria or to do other things in this space. And it looks to me like they've been carefully laid out. And we can certainly fit a number of students in there. Those desks I don't anticipate will all be full at all times, but they certainly are able to maintain the physical distancing there. This is the classroom at Broadford. Again, I believe it faced the other way. The last time I was in some classrooms at Broadford before they were moved, but you can see, again, they are very well distanced. This is another classroom at Broadford, ready for our students to return. This is the Northern Middle School cafeteria. Again, the tables that they had have been replaced by individual desks, all facing the same direction, which is also one of the recommendations. This is a classroom at Northern Middle School, very well social distanced. And you'll see what I said earlier, that there are students that will be clear in the back of the classroom, but you will see they are far apart from one another. This is the Northern Middle School traffic patterns that I mentioned. You'll see the blue arrows going one way, the green arrows coming another way. This will eliminate students passing too closely in the hallways. This is just a sign that reminds, this is Mrs. Wilburn's class, but these signs are up everywhere throughout Northern Middle and many other schools. Please line up 6 feet apart. So again, that's one more strategy. Thank you, Mrs. Wilburn, for letting me take a picture of this. This is another classroom at Northern Middle School, and I was just there yesterday, and I can attest to the fact that every classroom has some form of this station there with the disinfectant that I mentioned earlier. You see the hand sanitizer over here, and then the red, those are the gloves. So each classroom and other spaces in the main office, they have the same exact materials, especially the hand sanitizer. So I'm confident that teachers have it and it's ready to be used. This is a classroom at Southern Middle School. Again, their spaces are a little different, but you'll see they are spaced far enough apart and they are all facing the same direction. This is the cafeteria at Southern Middle. Again, gone are the tables where middle school kids can congregate at lunchtime, but hopefully it won't be forever, and we can, once we get through this, and then we will all keep them all safe, located throughout the cafeteria. This is the health room at Southern Middle School. You'll see, again, everyone separated well. Okay, so those are the pictures. Just want to give a couple of things on next steps for parents and families. We will have more information on our website. This PowerPoint will be on our website. But we're also starting something new. Last time when students returned, if we had a positive case, we would report that with a press release. This starting in March 1st, we're going to put that on our website. We will update it periodically, and there'll be a press release that will tell you exactly when that will be updated. We still have to be very careful that we don't give identifying information, but families will be able to go there and see that. But I would encourage, and I can't say this strongly enough, that if you do have questions or concerns regarding the health or safety, academics, mental health, or anything else about your student's return to in-person or your student who is remaining virtual, please reach out. Reach out to the teacher first, the principal, and then the appropriate director if you do not get an answer to your concern. We do want to hear from you if you have concerns. We know this isn't going to be perfect from the very first day, but what I can promise you is that we will hear and try and work with you if there is an issue that we can address, because we really do want our students to stay once they come back. And the same guidance I would give for our employees. If you have questions or concerns, or there's something you don't feel safe about, or there's something you feel we can do differently, again, please reach out to your principal, your supervisor, anyone that you feel that can address your issue, and we will try and work it out with you. So I can't stress that enough, that we know there are going to be issues, but if we don't know what they are, we can't address them. So I would strongly encourage folks to reach out to us if they have concerns. And I did answer some questions along the way, but I hope this has helped to answer some questions that families have, that our employees have. And I thank you for listening, and I can certainly answer any additional questions that board members may have.
You want to bring us back to full screen, Barb?
Yes. I have to figure out how, there we go. Okay. Ms. Rinker.
In the fall, when select students were invited back, they did not go from class to class. I believe they stayed in one designated area. So what about the concerns of students or parents, like they're in pre-K kindergarten, a 6th grader or 9th grader maybe has never stepped foot in the school before? Will there be somebody there when they come into school to kind of give them guidance or tell them where to go to their first class or the classroom they'll be in?
That's an excellent question, and it makes me sad that it's been a long time since some of our kids have been back for in-person learning, and you're absolutely right. I know our principals are well aware of this, that not all students will know, even in middle and particularly in high school, their schedules have changed from when they were there in the first semester back in September when they started coming back. So it's not just that they haven't even been in the building. Some of the students, their schedules have completely changed. So I know the principals are well aware of that, and will certainly make efforts to welcome the kids and make sure they know where they're supposed to be.
Other questions, Rodney?
You're still on mute, Mr. Glotfelty. I do it all the time, don't worry.
So we know all the pre-K through first grade students are coming back. Do we have a breakdown of how many students will be coming back? The people that are actually the students that have been invited back.
Can you repeat your question?
No, my phone's ringing. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So what is the total? Do you know the total number of students that will be coming back on March 1st, aside from the first, pre-K, K, and first graders?
Well, we set a target of about 30 to 35%. I know Mrs. DeVore has kept the actual totals. I don't know if you can give a total of March 1st, but a round number is about 30 to 35%. It varies by school. But do you have more specific numbers for Mr. Glotfelty?
I don't have specific numbers school by school. We left that autonomy to the principals. And because again, as you've said many times, it's different at every school, what their spaces can accommodate, what their needs are. So we left that to the autonomy of the principals, and I did not collect that data.
That'll be roughly, maybe they'll be close to 1,000 students
I
back.
would say, yeah, probably not that many at 35%. I don't quite that many, and it will vary by school, and I can certainly get that to you, but that's sort of the number that we gave as guidance. We said, if there are more students that are really disengaged, that don't have the internet capacity, go 35%. If you really feel you can meet 30%, then, stay with that. So it does vary by school. But we did say, please make sure that students without internet capabilities get invited first. And even if you have to go over a little bit for that first March 1st.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions for Superintendent? Yes, Garrett.
Hi, Mrs. Baker. Thank you for your presentation. I found it really informative, and I hope
you.
it can relieve some of our questions and concerns in the community. As I recall, in our last, swing at virtual in-person learning, I suppose that was the fall now. I recall we used a code virtual. If a student was feeling ill, they had symptoms of COVID-19, they had COVID-19, and they were meant to be in the building, but they participated virtually, and that did not count against them for attendance. I recently learned that that will no longer be a policy in our upcoming in-person education. So I was hoping to hear from you why if a student was feeling ill, they couldn't participate with their virtual classmates and be marked, if not present, but virtually present.
Did you want to answer that one, Mrs. DeVore, or do you want me to go?
You go ahead. If you don't hit my points, I'll.
No, you were raising you go first, and I'll add anything that I need to.
Well, I spoke and I spoke to Garrett and his student government group last week about that. And, we gave this a lot of attention, and we just feel very strongly from a curriculum perspective that we have got to get, we've been very loose with attendance, and the way we've been taking attendance has been extremely taxing on our teachers. It's taking up a lot of their asynchronous Wednesday time, just because we have given students and parents every benefit of the doubt up to this point. If we continue to be laxed in that, quite frankly, we can have students who say, I don't feel like going today, I'll just catch it online. And we need to kind of, we're at a point where we feel like we need to draw a line in the sand as far as collecting attendance. And if you're an in-person student, the expectation is that you would be in person. It does not prohibit a student, as I said to the student council group, it does not prohibit the student from getting online if there is an online component and getting the assignments, doing the work. Having said that, If you are in a class that doesn't have an online component because there aren't any students in that class who are virtual students, then that student is at a disadvantage to the student and through no fault of his own. So we just drew the line, and attendance is attendance. We had to draw it somewhere in an effort to get as close to normal. We're trying to head back to what we know to be normal.
I agree with you that there should be a modifications. I think they are fairly too lax now. It just seemed like almost asinine to me to punish a student for contracting or receiving COVID-19. That would be 2 weeks of 2 weeks.
Well, the actual COVID-19 is a different animal. Right. In that case, that would be, the principal would say that this child can join virtually. If a student is quarantined, and thank you for clarifying that. If a student is in quarantine or isolation, then and there is a virtual component available, then he can participate that way and get credit. But I understood your question previously, and maybe I misunderstood, but for the student who just, is ill or, just doesn't want to go that day, some students do that.
That's what I wanted to say. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, that's it. But in COVID, thank you for clarifying that. In COVID-19 situations, that we have left that autonomy to the principals.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and also really, in addition to being very difficult for teachers to manage, it also ensures that the students that are learning virtually receive the best experience they can, and the students receiving in person can receive the best instruction that they can, and that students aren't just moving back and forth. Students that are diagnosed with COVID, and I think each principal would work, they would move that student to virtual, they would work that out. This was more for students that were ill one day or had something else, and there would be an excused absence, and they could still participate. They just wouldn't be considered present for the day.
The hybrid teaching model is placing a really heavy lift on our teachers, and we need to start shoring up the parameters as best we can for the benefit of the students as well as the benefit of the teachers.
I understand that. I agree. Yeah, I'm glad you offered that clarification.
No, I'm glad we were able to clarify it, really. Thank you. I did notice Mr. Glaffelli raised his hand and Mr. Van Sickle raised his hand. Did we answer your questions, or did you have?
Yes, you answered them. I thought you should treat somebody that had a positive COVID test differently than somebody that's just sick.
Good. Thank you. Thank you both. Okay.
Yeah, I think common sense dictates the policy that you're using. It would be easy for students, unfortunately, to play video games till 1 a.m. and say, I'll just catch it online tomorrow morning. That really becomes very difficult for the school system to try to get back to normal. Monica, you have a question?
What happens on the asynchronous Wednesday? Is that a day that the staff would report to school, or is that a day that there's a lot of thorough cleaning done within the school building?
Well, no, I'm sorry.
Hopefully both.
Right. No, we are asking them to report to their workplace on 5 days a week on asynchronous Wednesdays as well. We have given the principals some autonomy that if there is a unique situation, not to be meant as a long-term daycare solution, not to be meant as an every Wednesday, but we have said if there is, just as we have always done with, if we have an employee that needed to leave a half an hour early for a treatment or something, we have allowed that, they make up that time. So we have allowed the principals to work with their teachers in certain situations for them to work remotely on asynchronous Wednesdays, but it is not meant to be a work remotely day. And you had a second part that I wanted to make sure I addressed. What was the second part?
I didn't know if that would be a day to be used for thorough cleaning within the building.
Oh, right, cleaning.
Not be there if the staff was to be there so they could clean. That was my point.
No, I did discuss that with Mr. Wazlowski because we did have some requests to work from home on Wednesdays, and his response was great, and I'm glad you asked, and that's why I wanted to make sure I addressed this. It will be no more intensive cleaning and disinfecting than any other day of the week. When a student walks into the building Monday morning, it will have the same cleaning and disinfecting as it does Tuesday morning, Thursday morning, Friday morning. Now, Wednesdays can be used by custodians and our cleaner screeners and some other folks to do more in the common areas, such as the gymnasium, the cafeteria, areas that wouldn't be used by students, but individual classrooms will receive the same cleaning. Wednesdays would just be some common areas that we could meet, but we can do that with staff according to the buildings.
In addition, we're going to continue staff development PD on Wednesdays during this time that we're trying. For example, the resiliency training that we're trying to get in. I definitely want to get that in while we still have the Wednesdays available. It affords us some time with teachers that we wouldn't have otherwise. And again, teachers are dealing with things that they've never had to deal with before. So we want to make sure that we're doing as much of the PD as we possibly can while we have the luxury of, quite frankly, not having to pay for subs, not having to pay for stipends.
Right, but we will make sure that it's targeted and important professional development, because we know they have a lot to do on those days as well. But it's a very good day for us to be able to meet with teachers, meet with staff, and do a lot of that professional development that Mrs.
In addition, they're going through yet another transition.
Right.
The teachers are going through yet another transition where they're teaching the group at home, the group in front of them, and trying to understand that balancing act. So
Using that as a segue.
as a transition. Yes.
Using transition as a segue to my question. I'm sure a lot of people out there are saying, okay, this is all great and it all looks good and we're doing super and the chart looks wonderful, etc. When do we get to 5 days? When do we get to 5 days a week? So you want to just give us an overall picture of what, when, where, how, and all those kinds of things?
Well, I will definitely do that. We have heard from a number of staff that have said, that the asynchronous Wednesdays has been vital to them being able to do all of these things that are in addition to what they normally, the hard work that they normally have to do. But we also know that there's 180 school days, and Wednesdays are just as important as every other day. So I do plan to make a recommendation at the next board meeting. I would like to see how the first first week or so goes before we transition to 5 days per week. But would anticipate that would be before the end of the school year. I think it's very important that we hopefully start off next school year at 5 days per week. And I think our best way to get there is to start this year. But I do want to make sure, there is a lot that they have to do. And as Mrs. DeVore said, now this is just one more change that they're going to have coming March 1st and March 15th. So I do want to make sure we give them that time to be able to effectively transition.
Anything else before we wrap up tonight, Monica?
Just one more question. This is more on clarification to make sure that I understand it. I believe I seen the Republican last week when it talked about our reopening, and it said some students would come back March 1st, and then it said the remainder would be invited back March 15th. My question is, the kids that will be virtual March 1st till March 15th, their full day, does it start March 1st or is it March 15th? Because I thought, from what I read in the paper, it all may sound like it was March 15th, but then I believe on a high school website, it looks like their first full day, even if you're virtual, is March 1st.
Oh, okay.
Mrs. DeVore, you want to go ahead and speak to that?
I go to work my microphone and
I'm quicker. No, I was just putting up a 1 for March 1st. Sorry.
You want to clarify her question, Mrs. DeVore?
yeah, I think she's.
We're starting with full days on March 1st. Again, we're using March 1st to March 15th as a transition time. We're trying to give our teachers grace. We're trying to give our parents and our students grace, because again, everybody's going through yet another great big change. And like, for example, those kids who have been virtual all along and who have the routine of just watching the recorded videos after the fact and then doing the work and turning it in, it's going to be a big transition time for them. And, you know, I'm anticipating maybe somebody who thought they could handle to continue it virtually because we've been doing virtually, everything's been going pretty well. But then during this March 1st to March 15th, they may realize that it's not as doable in their family situation. So again, we're really trying to have grace from March 1st to March 15th. That's why the document that we shared with the expectations for grading and attendance and everything, that says beginning March 15th. That's just because we're anticipating the full day beginning March 1st, but we're trying to give everybody grace for that 2-week period. I can certainly understand why people would be confused by it though.
But they all should have their schedules. I mean, they all should by now have all of the information that they need. The kids that are staying virtual.
Okay, yes, Jared, go ahead.
Am I correct to understand, and if so, I do support this, that teachers will have the power to require cameras and active participation in their Google Meets for the virtual students? And they'll be expected to do so?
Yes.
There is such an incredible stigma around being the first one to turn your camera on. You know, I'd gladly do it, but you know, there are 30 people doing it. No one wants to be the first. So if they could just.
Yes, I know. There's many times when I don't want to turn my camera on, but I always make an apology first and say, I'm sorry, but I'm turning my camera on. So yes, I hope that helps as well, Jarrett. I really do. I think it helps the teacher engage, and I do think it helps the student engage as well. All right. Well, I hope that this has provided a lot of good information, and I hope families are feeling even more secure. I'm very encouraged by the numbers, and I'm very hopeful that we're going to have a great experience next week.
Oh, I'm sure we will. You know, we've said this in a variety of ways, but I hope those that are not involved in the educational system have a great appreciation, or learn to have a great appreciation for the amazing amount of work that everybody in the educational system has done. I mean, from yourself, Superintendent Baker, all the way down to the last person who was hired. It's been an amazing accomplishment just to continue to be safe and look at, you know, think of throughout the course of this year, think of all the different things we've been told to do from February to now in terms of this pandemic, by every level of government, every expert, everybody, change directions every month, this and that. And we've tried to, as a system, listen to all that guidance and go that direction. And if we change, we change. But, the amount of work that principals and teachers and custodians and maintenance and everyone has done is just, as a person who worked in education my entire life, it's amazing. I quite honestly, I would not look forward to going to work every day under the circumstances that we have been placed in. It's been very difficult, I'm sure. So congratulations, and our prayers are that we have a wonderful last 3-4 months of school, and the kids are happy, and we have a graduation, we have a prom, and we have all the wonderful things at the end of school that everybody wants and deserves. So with that being said, I will remind everyone that we are March the 9th. It will be in person at the board office. So we're looking forward to that as well. And moving forward is with all of our kids back in school. So if there's nothing else for the good of the group, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Van Sickle, second by Ms. Rinker. And we, any discussion? Without discussion, then those in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed, nay. I did not think there would be any nays.